In the vast, grim expanse of the 41st millennium, the galaxy is a canvas painted in blood and fire, where the clash of empires and ideologies shapes the very stars themselves. Among the countless tales of strife and sacrifice, one legend stands apart, an account not just of warfare but of endurance, betrayal, and unyielding will. The story of the Iron Cage resonates as a brutal chapter of survival and vengeance, intertwining the fates of Space Marine legions and echoing across millennia. The galaxy at this time was reeling from the devastation of the Horus Heresy, a cataclysmic civil war that shattered the Imperium of man and left wounds that festered for centuries. In its wake, loyalty and treachery became blurred, and trust was a rare commodity. The remnants of the once mighty legions grappled with their identities, their futures uncertain in a universe now filled with suspicion and fragmented alliances. The Iron Cage, as it would come to be known, was not merely a battle, it was a crucible. At its heart lay the embers of a feud born in the heresy, ignited by pride and fanned by a thirst for retribution. It was a theater of agony where survival was measured not in strength alone, but in the ability to endure unimaginable hardship. The very name evokes an image of despair and inescapable torment, yet also of defiance and unbreakable resolve. The setting for this saga was an unnamed, desolate world scarred by years of relentless warfare. Its surface bore the remnants of a titanic struggle, craters from orbital bombardments, shattered ruins of fortresses, and the skeletal remains of countless warriors. This battlefield was chosen deliberately, its harsh terrain amplifying the brutality of the coming conflict. The environment itself became an antagonist, pushing the combatants to their physical and mental limits. As this tale unfolds, questions emerge. What drove these warriors to such extremes? What stakes justified the sacrifice of thousands? And perhaps most hauntingly, what became of those caught within this terrible conflict? The legend of the Iron Cage is not only a story of tactics and heroism, it is a grim reminder of the cost of hubris and the unrelenting nature of war in the 41st millennium. In this exploration of the Iron Cage, we will uncover the key players, the chain of events that led to the confrontation, and the turning points that defined its outcome. The tale will weave through the lives of those who fought, the technologies and strategies employed, and the mysteries that remain unsolved. Each chapter reveals a fragment of a narrative that transcends simple conflict, shaping the history of the Adeptus Astartes and the Imperium itself. The Iron Cage, a name etched into the annals of the Imperium, was more than a battlefield. It was a brutal testament to the calculated cruelty of one side and the unyielding determination of the other. Central to this confrontation were two key forces, both representing the epitome of the Space Marines' duality. Each faction embodied a distinct philosophy, approach to warfare, and ideological drive that clashed with devastating consequences. The architects of the Iron Cage were the Iron Warriors, a legion forged in the crucible of siege warfare. Known for their unrelenting focus on fortifications and attritional tactics, the Iron Warriors took pride in their mastery of defensive combat. Their expertise was unmatched in the creation of impregnable bastions, labyrinthine traps, and kill zones designed to grind down even the most formidable attackers. This siege expertise became their defining trait, and their reputation for ruthless efficiency was both feared and respected across the galaxy. At the heart of the Iron Warriors' strategy was their ability to turn any location into a death trap. They specialized in exploiting terrain, constructing fortresses that were as much psychological weapons as physical barriers. The Iron Cage was their magnum opus, a battlefield of their own design. Every trench, bunker, and kill zone was meticulously planned to maximize suffering and ensure their enemies paid the ultimate price for every inch of ground gained. In stark contrast to the Iron Warriors stood the Imperial Fists, another Space Marine legion that shared a deep connection with fortifications but approached them with a different mindset. While the Iron Warriors focused on the destruction of defenses, The Imperial Fists were the masters of their construction and the unshakable guardians of humanity's bastions. Their expertise lay in building strongholds that could endure any assault and standing firm in the face of overwhelming odds. Their identity was steeped in notions of duty, sacrifice, and unyielding loyalty to the Emperor. The conflict between these two legions was not born solely of strategic opposition, but of ideological differences that had simmered for years, erupting during the tumultuous era of the Horus Heresy. The Iron Warriors, embittered by perceived neglect and resentment, turned against the Imperium, while the Imperial Fists remained steadfastly loyal. The Iron Cage became a brutal stage for this long-standing animosity, with each side representing an unrelenting aspect of warfare, one of calculated cruelty, the other of defiant endurance. The prison itself, the Iron Cage, was a symbol of the Iron Warriors' philosophy. It was a nightmare of interlocking trenches, fortified bunkers, and hidden kill zones, all constructed to break the spirit of any who dared to challenge it. The battlefield was as much a weapon as the warriors who defended it, designed to ensnare attackers in a relentless cycle of suffering and futility. Every step forward for an invader became a step into deeper peril, as the environment itself seemed to conspire against them. Yet the Iron Cage was not merely a test of martial skill. It was a psychological crucible. For the defenders, it was a testament to their defiance and mastery of war's brutal mechanics. For the attackers, it was a gauntlet that demanded not just physical strength, but unbreakable resolve. In this deadly arena, the roles of captor and captive became blurred, with both sides enduring unimaginable trials. The prisoners of this grim conflict, though not yet detailed here, played an essential role in shaping the legend. Their fate within the Iron Cage symbolized the duality of the event, a harrowing ordeal and a story of resilience that would echo through the ages. The Iron Cage was not just a physical construct, but a manifestation of ideological conflict, a stage where philosophies collided with catastrophic results. Through their actions and designs, the Iron Warriors ensured that the Iron Cage would remain a haunting chapter in the Imperium's history, while the Imperial Fists' response carved their own legend into the hearts of their allies and enemies alike. These two factions, bound by shared expertise but divided by irreconcilable differences, transformed the Iron Cage into a battleground that transcended mere warfare, becoming a symbol of the extremes of the human condition in the grim darkness of the far future. The events leading to the Iron Cage were rooted in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, a galactic civil war that fractured the Imperium of Man and left deep scars across its once mighty legions. This period was marked by widespread chaos, shattered alliances, and the lingering bitterness of those who had turned against the Emperor. Amid the wreckage of this conflict, the Iron Warriors sought to assert their dominance and vindicate their decisions, while those loyal to the Imperium sought retribution and justice. The galaxy was in turmoil. The traitor legions, including the Iron Warriors, had retreated into the Eye of Terror, their plans for conquest foiled, but their hatred undiminished. These legions, scattered and fractured, turned their attention to fortifying their strongholds and enacting revenge on the Imperium wherever possible. For the Iron Warriors, their skill in siege warfare became a weapon of defiance, a means of expressing their disdain for their former allies and showcasing their mastery of strategic brutality. The creation of the Iron Cage was not a random act of violence, but a calculated move. It was designed to serve multiple purposes, both tactical and symbolic. First, it was a challenge, a demonstration of the Iron Warriors' defiance in the face of Imperial retribution. By constructing a battlefield of unparalleled difficulty, they sought to bait their enemies into an unwinnable confrontation, turning the battlefield into a monument to their ingenuity and cruelty. Second, the Iron Cage was a tool of psychological warfare. The Iron Warriors understood the value of fear and suffering as weapons. The maze of fortifications and death traps they constructed was intended to demoralize their foes, proving that even in defeat, the traitor legions could strike terror into the heart of the Imperium. The creation of such a place was as much a statement as a military maneuver, a grim declaration that the Iron Warriors would never bow or yield. At a broader level, the Iron Cage was a manifestation of a larger conflict between two ideologies. The Imperium, though battered, was determined to purge the galaxy of the traitorous forces that had nearly destroyed it. To this end, the Loyalist forces, including the Imperial Fists, were driven by a need to eliminate threats like the Iron Warriors to prevent further destabilization. The Iron Cage represented an opportunity to confront one of these threats head-on, but it also embodied the risk of falling into a carefully laid trap. Another key factor leading to the Iron Cage was the fractured state of the galaxy's military forces. The Legiones Astartes, once unified in their service to the Emperor, were now divided. The traitor legions, while still formidable, faced internal divisions and growing distrust among their ranks. The Imperium, too, was grappling with logistical challenges, depleted resources, and the sheer scale of rebuilding after the heresy. This precarious balance meant that any engagement, particularly one as audacious as the Iron Cage, carried significant consequences for both sides. Finally, the broader context of the Imperium's survival played a critical role. The Emperor, now entombed upon the Golden Throne, could no longer guide humanity directly. This left his loyalists struggling to maintain unity and purpose. The confrontation at the Iron Cage became a microcosm of this struggle, an attempt to impose order on a galaxy teetering on the brink of anarchy and to reaffirm the Imperium's dominance in the face of unyielding opposition. The Iron Warriors' creation of this grim battlefield was not merely a defensive measure. It was an act of vengeance and a means of asserting their legacy. The Loyalist forces, in turn, saw the challenge as an opportunity to prove their resilience and decisiveness. The convergence of these motivations set the stage for one of the most grueling and infamous confrontations in Imperial history. The events preceding the Iron Cage reveal not only the lingering scars of betrayal, but also the determination of both sides to shape the galaxy according to their vision, regardless of the cost. It was this collision of wills, strategies, and ideologies that forged the path to the Iron Cage, a crucible that would test the mettle of all who entered its deadly confines. The unfolding events within the Iron Cage marked a brutal and unrelenting evolution of suffering and survival. From its inception, the Iron Cage was designed as a crucible of despair, a battlefield that doubled as a prison for the unfortunate souls caught within. What began as a calculated strategy of entrapment by the Iron Warriors gradually transformed into a nightmarish ecosystem where the rules of engagement and the conditions of survival shifted with every passing moment. Initially, the Iron Cage was constructed to function as both a death trap and a stronghold. Its layout was a masterstroke of defensive engineering. Layers of trenches, interconnected tunnels, hidden bunkers, and weapon emplacements created an intricate labyrinth. For the prisoners, these features presented insurmountable obstacles, turning every escape attempt into a deadly gamble. The conditions were harsh from the start, exposed to environmental extremes, denied basic necessities, and subjected to constant psychological warfare. In the early stages of the conflict, prisoners were used strategically. Captured soldiers served multiple purposes. They were both bait for rescue attempts and a source of psychological leverage. The Iron Warriors manipulated their captives to demoralize their enemies, broadcasting their suffering and using their presence to lure Loyalist forces deeper into the killing fields. These tactics further entrenched the Iron Cage as a symbol of torment and hopelessness. As time progressed, the conditions within the Iron Cage deteriorated further. Supplies dwindled, and the harsh realities of prolonged captivity took their toll. For the prisoners, survival became a test of endurance, resourcefulness, and mental fortitude. The Iron Warriors, coldly efficient in their cruelty, adjusted the dynamics within the cage to maintain their dominance. Food and water were deliberately rationed to create competition and foster despair among the captives. The few medical supplies available were withheld, ensuring that injuries, disease, and exhaustion would claim lives as efficiently as the battlefield itself. Rules within the prison were enforced through brutality and fear. Captives who defied their captors or attempted escape faced public punishment, serving as grim warnings to others. Over time, the Iron Warriors developed a system of manipulation, exploiting the prisoners' desperation to sow division and mistrust. Informants were coerced into betraying their fellow captives, while acts of defiance were met with collective punishment, ensuring that the group bore the consequences of individual resistance. Despite these conditions, the prisoners adapted to their circumstances in remarkable ways. They established covert networks to share resources, communicate, and organize. Acts of defiance, though rare and costly, became a form of psychological resistance, proving that even under the harshest conditions, the human spirit could not be entirely extinguished. These small victories provided a glimmer of hope in an otherwise bleak existence. The evolution of the Iron Cage was also marked by the shifting tactics of its architects. As the conflict dragged on, the Iron Warriors began to experiment with new methods of control and suppression. They introduced mechanized patrols, automated defenses, and environmental hazards, such as flooding tunnels or collapsing sections of the labyrinth, to keep the prisoners perpetually on edge. These innovations transformed the Iron Cage from a static stronghold into a dynamic environment that actively resisted any attempts at escape or rebellion. For the prisoners, the cage became a living entity, one that adapted to their actions and sought to crush their spirit at every turn. Yet, even as the conditions grew more dire, the prisoners demonstrated remarkable resilience. They developed codes and signals to communicate without detection, scavenged materials to fashion crude tools and weapons, and found ways to endure the relentless psychological and physical torment. By the later stages of the Iron Cage's operation, the situation had reached a tipping point. The Iron Warriors, stretched thin by their ongoing conflict with the Loyalists, could no longer maintain total control over the prison. The chaos within the cage grew as prisoners seized opportunities to resist, sabotage their captors' efforts, and exploit weaknesses in the defenses. These actions, though sporadic and often unsuccessful, symbolized the unyielding determination of those trapped within. The evolution of the Iron Cage was a grim testament to the depths of suffering and the heights of resilience that defined its captives. From its inception as a tool of domination to its transformation into a battleground of wills, the Iron Cage became more than a prison. It became a crucible of humanity's darkest and most indomitable traits. The story of its development is one of relentless adaptation, both by its creators and those who sought to survive its horrors. The prisoners of the Iron Cage faced a fate that was both harrowing and transformative, shaped by a singular and defining moment when the brutal calculus of war reached its crescendo. After enduring relentless torment in the labyrinthine fortress, they found themselves caught in a grim cycle of despair and resistance. However, their ultimate fate was sealed by a decision that shattered the balance of power within the cage, unleashing a wave of chaos that defined their destiny. The turning point came not as a grand rescue or heroic intervention, but as an act born of desperation. The Iron Warriors, stretched thin by mounting pressure from external forces, began to falter in their iron grip over the prisoners. Resources were running low, defenses strained under repeated incursions, and even the Iron Warriors' unyielding discipline started to erode. This vulnerability created an opening, a slim and fleeting chance for the prisoners to act. For the prisoners, the moment of reckoning was catalyzed by a bold and audacious plan. Among them, a few individuals, driven by sheer desperation and a refusal to succumb to despair, managed to ignite a spark of rebellion. Utilizing the limited resources at their disposal and the knowledge they had gleaned from their time within the cage, they coordinated a strike against a critical weak point in the Iron Warriors' defenses. The details of how this information was obtained remain shrouded in speculation, but the resulting action was nothing short of transformative. The rebellion was not a clean or well-coordinated effort. It was a chaotic explosion of pent-up fury and desperate ingenuity. Makeshift weapons, sabotaged equipment, and the sheer force of numbers overwhelmed the Iron Warriors in certain sectors of the cage. Fires erupted in the tunnels, smoke and debris filling the air as the prisoners fought with a ferocity born of knowing they had nothing left to lose. For the first time, the carefully constructed death trap that had held them in its grip began to fracture. However, freedom was not the ultimate outcome for many of the prisoners. The Iron Warriors, ruthless in their response, enacted their final act of vengeance. As the rebellion spread, they activated a series of devastating countermeasures, collapsing entire sections of the cage and flooding others with toxic gases. The battlefield became a maelstrom of destruction, claiming the lives of both prisoners and their captors in staggering numbers. For many, the cage became their tomb, sealing their fates in its depths. Yet not all perished. A small number of prisoners, through sheer luck or cunning, managed to escape the inferno. Their survival was a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of those who refused to be broken. These survivors, scarred and forever changed by their ordeal, would carry the story of the Iron Cage beyond its smoking ruins, spreading a tale of both unimaginable suffering and the indomitable will to endure. The ultimate fate of the prisoners is a grim reflection of the cruelty inherent in the conflict that birthed the Iron Cage. For those who perished, their deaths became a haunting reminder of the cost of hubris and vengeance. For those who survived, the scars, both physical and psychological, would remain as enduring testaments to their time within the cage. The decision to allow the rebellion to ignite, whether a calculated risk or a consequence of desperation, defined the legacy of the Iron Cage. It turned the prison from a symbol of unassailable power into a fragmented memory of tragedy and defiance. The prisoners' fate, shaped by this critical moment, ensures that their story lives on as both a cautionary tale and a grim inspiration to those who face impossible odds in the darkness of the far future. The impact of the Iron Cage reverberated across the galaxy, leaving profound scars on the Imperium of Man and altering the course of its history. The fallout from this brutal chapter extended beyond the confines of the battlefield, reshaping not only the strategic priorities of the Imperial war machine, but also the psychological fabric of its warriors and leadership. The destruction of the Iron Cage and the harrowing events within its walls became a grim lesson for the Imperium. The sheer scale of suffering endured by the prisoners and the near-total annihilation of those involved demonstrated the catastrophic consequences of underestimating the traitor legions. The Iron Warriors had turned their expertise into a weapon of attrition so devastating that even their eventual losses could not overshadow the message they delivered. The traitors remained a potent force, capable of inflicting unimaginable harm even in retreat. Strategically, the Imperium was forced to reevaluate its approach to warfare against the traitor legions. The Iron Cage exemplified the dangers of pursuing vengeance without preparation, and the need to adapt tactics against enemies whose methods defied traditional military doctrines. It underscored the importance of reconnaissance, flexibility, and the willingness to abandon conventional strategies in favor of asymmetrical warfare. In the aftermath, Imperial commanders adopted a more cautious stance when engaging fortified positions, recognizing that overwhelming force alone was insufficient against opponents as resourceful and relentless as the Iron Warriors. The psychological toll on the surviving forces was equally significant. For those who had witnessed the horrors of the Iron Cage firsthand, the experience left an indelible mark. Many survivors carried physical scars, but the mental trauma was even more pervasive. Tales of the suffering endured by the prisoners and the grim fate that awaited those who faltered became a somber narrative passed down among the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes. This story served as both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry, inspiring unwavering determination in future battles while reminding them of the stakes of failure. On a broader scale, the legacy of the Iron Cage influenced the morale of the Imperium as a whole. For many within the Imperium's vast bureaucracy and citizenry, the tale of the Iron Cage reinforced the grim reality of their existence in the 41st millennium. The galaxy was not a place of hope or redemption, but a theater of endless war where survival came at an unbearable cost. The plight of the prisoners became a symbol of the Imperium's unyielding resolve, but also of its callous disregard for individual lives in the face of its grand ambitions. The Iron Cage also had far-reaching effects on the relationship between the Imperium's military forces and its leadership. The catastrophic losses and perceived lack of support from higher echelons during the battle created tension and mistrust within the ranks. Many warriors began to question the wisdom and priorities of those who commanded from afar, leading to a subtle but growing rift between frontline forces and the Imperium's centralized authority. This division, while not immediately destabilizing, planted seeds of dissent that would influence future conflicts. For the traitor legions, the Iron Cage was both a victory and a Pyrrhic loss. While they had demonstrated their resilience and inflicted a devastating blow on the Imperium, the battle exposed the fragility of their resources and the internal fractures within their own ranks. The Iron Warriors, in particular, emerged as both celebrated and vilified among the traitor legions. Their success in creating the Iron Cage solidified their reputation as masters of siege warfare, but their inability to maintain control in the face of rebellion highlighted the limitations of their methods. The wider galaxy also bore witness to the Iron Cage's consequences. Factions on the fringes of the Imperium, from renegade warbands to Xenos empires, observed the unfolding events with keen interest. The chaos and destruction demonstrated both the Imperium's vulnerabilities and the ferocity of its enemies, encouraging some to exploit these weaknesses and others to avoid confrontation altogether. The narrative of the Iron Cage became a point of contention, interpreted and manipulated by countless factions to suit their agendas. In the end, the Iron Cage reshaped the Imperium's approach to war, its internal dynamics, and its perception among its allies and enemies alike. It stood as a grim monument to the duality of war, the unrelenting will to endure, and the unthinkable cost of survival. The galaxy, already a bleak and fractured place, became even more defined by this event, as its lessons echoed through generations of warriors and leaders, shaping the future of the Imperium and those who sought its downfall. The Iron Cage, beyond its immediate horrors and lasting consequences, holds a unique place in the lore of the 41st millennium due to the intricate and deliberately cruel mechanisms that defined its creation and operation. Among the most discussed and debated aspects are the ingenious technologies, psychological warfare tactics, and symbolic undertones that set the Iron Cage apart from other conflicts in the galaxy's long history. One of the most striking elements of the Iron Cage was its architectural ingenuity. The fortress complex was designed not merely as a stronghold, but as a weapon in its own right. Every aspect of the environment was engineered to exploit the weaknesses of its inhabitants, whether they were attacking forces or prisoners. The labyrinthine structure incorporated automated defense systems, pressure-sensitive traps, and concealed weapon emplacements that could be triggered remotely. These systems ensured that no area was truly safe, forcing constant vigilance and heightening the mental strain of those inside. Particularly unique was the use of active terrain within the Iron Cage. Certain sections of the battlefield could be transformed dynamically to trap or isolate enemies. For example, collapsible tunnels and shifting walls created choke points or rendered familiar routes suddenly impassable. This level of environmental manipulation showcased the extreme lengths the architects went to in crafting a battlefield that constantly evolved to serve their strategic aims. Another distinctive feature was the Iron Warriors' use of psychological warfare. The very design of the Iron Cage was intended to demoralize and break the will of its occupants. The oppressive atmosphere, punctuated by the relentless noise of machinery and the ever-present stench of death, created a sensory overload that sapped the strength and resolve of those within. Prisoners were subjected to auditory and visual disturbances, such as the constant echo of boots in distant tunnels or flickering lights that mimicked the approach of attackers. These tactics ensured that sleep was rare and paranoia rampant, further degrading the mental state of anyone inside. The iron cage also highlighted the innovative use of servitor technology. The Iron Warriors employed numerous automated servitors, cybernetic constructs programmed to patrol the labyrinth, maintain its defenses, and execute prisoners when commanded. These servitors, often grotesquely modified from their original forms, added a chilling element to the environment. Their unrelenting presence reinforced the sense of inescapability, as even the deadliest warriors could not match their tireless efficiency or disregard for self-preservation. Another aspect often debated among fans is the symbolic nature of the Iron Cage. Many view it as a grim representation of the philosophical clash between its creators and their enemies. The structure itself symbolized the Iron Warriors' belief in the inevitability of suffering and their unyielding commitment to proving their superiority through calculated cruelty. For the prisoners and their would-be rescuers, the Iron Cage became a test of faith and resilience, a physical manifestation of the Imperium's eternal struggle against despair and annihilation. The lasting legend of the Iron Cage is also deeply tied to the mystery of its eventual survivors. Stories of those who escaped often include tales of hidden messages and crude carvings left in the tunnels, believed to have been attempts at communication or records of their suffering. Some of these messages, recovered and analyzed by later Imperial forces, suggest the existence of secret chambers or forgotten sections of the labyrinth. This has led to speculation that the Iron Cage might still hold secrets, including caches of forbidden technology or even remnants of the prisoners themselves. Another intriguing element is the debate surrounding the extent of premeditation in the Iron Warriors' actions. Some argue that the Iron Cage was meticulously planned as a deliberate statement of defiance and a showcase of their unparalleled engineering prowess. Others suggest that its creation was partially an act of desperation, an attempt to regain control over their fractured identity following their defeat in larger conflicts. This duality, whether the Iron Cage was a masterstroke of strategy or a desperate gambit, remains a contentious topic among historians and fans alike. Perhaps most fascinating is the lingering impact of the Iron Cage on later Imperial fortifications and doctrines. Many of its features, particularly the use of dynamic terrain and psychological pressure, were studied and adapted by Imperial forces for their own purposes. While the Iron Cage itself was a nightmare for those who endured it, its legacy contributed to the evolution of the Imperium's understanding of siege warfare, ensuring that its lessons were never forgotten. The combination of technological innovation, psychological manipulation, and symbolic resonance ensures that the Iron Cage remains a deeply compelling chapter in the history of the 41st millennium. It is a tale that captures the imagination and invites endless speculation, ensuring its place as one of the most discussed and analyzed events in the grim darkness of the far future. Within the confines of the Iron Cage, several remarkable individuals emerged whose resilience, determination, and ingenuity left an indelible mark on the legend. These prisoners were not mere pawns in the grand game of war. They were extraordinary figures who, despite the crushing circumstances, demonstrated an unyielding will to survive and inspire others. One such individual was a veteran warrior whose reputation as a strategist preceded him. Known for his ability to adapt in the most chaotic situations, he quickly became a central figure among the prisoners. His approach to leadership was pragmatic, but deeply rooted in a sense of responsibility. He understood that their survival depended not only on physical strength, but also on unity. Through his measured demeanor and sharp intellect, he coordinated small acts of resistance, such as securing rations, sharing crucial information, and mapping sections of the labyrinth. His ability to inspire hope, even in the bleakest conditions, became a beacon for those around him, though the immense burden of leadership often weighed heavily on him, manifesting in moments of doubt and self-recrimination. Another prisoner of note was a master craftsman whose expertise in engineering became a critical asset. Despite being trapped in a place designed to stifle ingenuity, this individual repurposed scraps of debris and broken equipment into tools and makeshift weapons. Their ability to analyze the mechanisms of the iron cage's defenses gave the prisoners fleeting opportunities to outmaneuver their captors. However, this ingenuity came at great personal risk, as the Iron Warriors mercilessly punished any sign of tampering with their creations. Their contributions, while invaluable, were often made in isolation, as they grappled with the fear of betrayal from fellow prisoners coerced into collaboration by their captors. A particularly unique figure among the prisoners was a warrior renowned for their unbreakable spirit and defiance. Unlike others who approached survival with strategy or technical skill, this individual embodied sheer resilience. Their unrelenting nature, even under the harshest conditions, became a source of inspiration for those who had begun to lose hope. They endured punishment after punishment, each time rising again, bloodied but unbowed. This defiance served as a psychological counterpoint to the Iron Warriors' attempts to instill despair. However, this relentless drive also had its drawbacks, as their tendency to confront their captors directly often placed others at risk and made them a constant target. Among the prisoners were also individuals whose roles were less overt but equally vital. A skilled communicator emerged as a clandestine messenger, using subtle gestures, coded phrases, and hidden markings to maintain a fragile network of coordination among the scattered prisoners. Their ability to navigate the complexities of the iron cage's oppressive environment without detection was nothing short of remarkable. Their work, though largely unsung, ensured that critical information and morale-boosting messages were disseminated, preventing the captives from descending into total isolation and despair. There was also a medic whose dedication to preserving life became a quiet but profound act of resistance. Despite the severe lack of resources, they managed to treat injuries, stave off infections, and provide comfort to the dying. Their compassion in such a brutal setting stood as a stark contrast to the cruelty of the Iron Warriors, reminding the prisoners of their shared humanity. Their ability to endure the emotional toll of witnessing so much suffering was a testament to their inner strength, though it came at a personal cost, as the weight of so many lost lives haunted them deeply. Lastly, there was the enigmatic figure who appeared to act as a bridge between factions within the prisoner population. This individual had a talent for negotiation and diplomacy, navigating the fractured alliances and tensions that inevitably arose in such dire circumstances. Their presence often diffused volatile situations, and their ability to bring disparate groups together under a common goal proved invaluable in maintaining a semblance of order. However, their role also made them a target of suspicion, as their interactions with the captors, while rare, were often viewed with distrust by their fellow prisoners. Each of these individuals, through their unique qualities and contributions, shaped the collective experience of those trapped within the iron cage. Their actions, whether rooted in strategy, resilience, ingenuity, or compassion, demonstrated the diverse ways humanity can respond to unimaginable adversity. Their stories, though often overshadowed by the grand narrative of the Iron Cage, remain a crucial part of its legend, offering glimpses of hope, defiance, and the unyielding spirit that refused to be extinguished. The Iron Cage remains one of the most enigmatic and hotly debated events in the history of the 41st millennium. While many details about the battle and its aftermath are documented, several unanswered questions and theories continue to fascinate scholars, strategists, and enthusiasts alike. These mysteries add layers of intrigue to an already harrowing tale, fueling speculation and debate within the community. One of the most discussed mysteries revolves around the prisoners themselves. While some survivors eventually rejoined their forces, a significant number were unaccounted for. The question of what happened to these individuals remains unanswered. Did they perish in the chaos of the rebellion and the eventual destruction of the Iron Cage, or were they taken elsewhere by the Iron Warriors for purposes unknown? Some theorists suggest that these missing prisoners could have been experimented on, their suffering extended for the Iron Warriors' cruel amusement, or even as part of their ongoing pursuit of forbidden technologies. Another unresolved question concerns the precise motivations behind the Iron Warriors' decision to construct the Iron Cage. While it is often seen as an act of defiance and a trap for their enemies, there are hints that deeper, more insidious purposes may have been at play. Some records suggest the Iron Cage was not merely a battlefield, but also a proving ground for experimental tactics and technologies. If true, this raises questions about what data the Iron Warriors may have collected and how it was later used in their campaigns against the Imperium. The existence of hidden chambers within the Iron Cage has long been a subject of speculation. Surviving maps and accounts suggest the labyrinth may have contained areas unknown even to those who fought there. These could have housed stockpiles of weapons, records of the Iron Warriors' strategies, or even prisoners who were never discovered. The possibility that some captives may still be entombed in these hidden sections, alive or otherwise, has led to numerous expeditions by Imperial forces to uncover the truth. None have succeeded, and the mystery only deepens with time. Another topic of debate is the extent to which the Iron Cage influenced the broader galaxy. Some theorists argue that the psychological and symbolic impact of the event was as significant as its immediate consequences. Did the tale of the Iron Cage inspire future conflicts, either by emboldening those who sought to defy the Imperium, or by instilling a fear of engaging the traitor legions on their own terms? The legacy of this event may have shaped Imperial doctrine and the morale of its enemies in ways that are still not fully understood. The actions of certain individuals during the battle also remain contentious. Accounts of key prisoners and their roles in the rebellion often conflict, leading to questions about the reliability of these narratives. Were there betrayals among the prisoners, as some sources claim, or was this propaganda spread by the Iron Warriors to sow discord among Imperial forces? The lack of definitive evidence makes it difficult to separate fact from fiction, leaving much of this aspect shrouded in doubt. One particularly haunting theory suggests that the Iron Cage was a test of loyalty and endurance, not only for the prisoners but for the Imperium itself. By trapping their enemies in such a nightmarish environment, the Iron Warriors may have sought to force the Imperium to reveal the limits of its commitment to its own warriors. The delayed response to the prisoners' plight, coupled with the staggering losses incurred during rescue attempts, raises uncomfortable questions about the value the Imperium places on individual lives versus its larger strategic goals. The use of servitors and automated defenses within the Iron Cage also sparks curiosity. While their presence is well documented, the nature of their programming and potential origins remain unclear. Were these constructs specifically designed for the Iron Cage, or were they repurposed from other campaigns? Some suggest that the servitors displayed behaviors that hinted at a disturbing level of autonomy, potentially influenced by forbidden technologies. If true, this could indicate that the Iron Cage served as a field test for advancements that later found their way into the arsenals of other traitor legions. Finally, the cultural memory of the Iron Cage presents its own enigma. Over the centuries, tales of the event have evolved, blending fact with myth. Certain aspects, such as the identities of specific prisoners or the exact layout of the labyrinth, have become distorted, creating a legend that is as much a cautionary tale as a historical record. The lack of consistent documentation has made it nearly impossible to discern where truth ends and embellishment begins. These lingering questions and theories ensure that the Iron Cage remains a focal point of fascination and debate. Its mysteries capture the imagination, inviting endless speculation about the motivations, consequences, and secrets hidden within its shadowy history. The Iron Cage, even in its destruction, continues to shape the narrative of the Imperium and its eternal struggle against the forces of chaos and despair. The long-term consequences of the Iron Cage extend far beyond the immediate bloodshed and suffering it inflicted. It left an enduring imprint on the galaxy, shaping strategies, philosophies, and the broader narrative of the Imperium's unending war against the forces of chaos. Its significance is woven into the very fabric of the 41st millennium, influencing not just the survivors, but the systems and ideologies that govern the Imperium and its adversaries. The Iron Cage became a stark symbol of the cost of war and the harsh realities of the Imperium's priorities. Its aftermath forced a reassessment of how the Imperium allocates resources and values its warriors. While the resilience shown by those who endured its horrors was celebrated, the staggering losses and the sheer scale of suffering highlighted the Imperium's cold pragmatism. This duality fostered a grim sense of realism within the ranks of Imperial leadership, reminding them of the need to balance their ideological fervor with practical considerations. In this way, the Iron Cage serves as a constant reminder of the dangers of blind ambition, encouraging a more cautious approach in future engagements. On the other hand, the Iron Cage's existence emboldened the traitor legions and other enemies of the Imperium. It demonstrated the devastating potential of unconventional warfare, showing that even a retreating force could inflict monumental damage with the right strategy. This lesson was not lost on those who opposed the Imperium. Over time, similar tactics have been adopted and refined by renegade factions and xeno-species, leading to more frequent use of traps, psychological warfare, and attritional strategies designed to exploit the Imperium's weaknesses. The psychological impact of the Iron Cage on the Imperium's populace cannot be overstated. Its tale, retold across generations, became both a source of grim inspiration and a harrowing warning. For some, the resilience displayed by the prisoners symbolized the unbreakable spirit of humanity, a testament to their ability to endure even the most horrifying circumstances. For others, it highlighted the Imperium's willingness to sacrifice countless lives for marginal gains, deepening cynicism and fostering a growing sense of disillusionment within certain segments of the population. One of the most intriguing long-term effects of the Iron Cage lies in its potential to shape future conflicts. The event exposed vulnerabilities in the Imperium's reliance on overwhelming force and rigid doctrine. In response, more adaptable and unconventional strategies began to emerge within the ranks of Imperial commanders. While these changes were slow to manifest, they signaled a subtle but significant shift in the Imperium's approach to warfare, paving the way for a more dynamic understanding of combat in the far future. If the Iron Cage had never existed, the galaxy might have unfolded quite differently. The absence of such a catastrophic event could have spared countless lives and resources, but it would also have denied the Imperium a hard-earned lesson in resilience and adaptability. The traitor legions, lacking the symbolic victory the Iron Cage represented, might have pursued alternative strategies, potentially leading to even greater devastation in other theaters of war. Likewise, the absence of the Iron Cage's brutal legacy might have deprived the Imperium of the psychological fortitude it needed to endure subsequent conflicts. In a broader sense, the Iron Cage also serves as a grim metaphor for the unending cycle of suffering and sacrifice that defines the 41st millennium. Its legacy reinforces the notion that victory often comes at an unbearable cost, and that survival in such a bleak and hostile galaxy requires both immense strength and an acceptance of loss. This message, though harsh, has shaped the Imperium's identity, instilling a sense of duty and perseverance that continues to drive its people forward. From a cultural perspective, the Iron Cage's story resonates deeply within the collective memory of the Imperium. It has inspired countless works of art, literature, and even propaganda, all aimed at reinforcing the ideals of endurance and loyalty. Yet, it has also provoked critical reflection on the nature of the Imperium's leadership and the ethical compromises required to sustain its existence. These conflicting narratives ensure that the Iron Cage remains a subject of both reverence and controversy. The long-term significance of the Iron Cage is ultimately a reflection of the grim darkness of the 41st millennium itself. It exemplifies the duality of hope and despair, resilience and futility that permeates the galaxy. While its absence might have spared the Imperium a singularly horrific chapter, its existence has shaped the galaxy in ways that are both profound and enduring, ensuring its place as a defining moment in the endless saga of war and survival.